And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another off-season supporter series chat. As you guys know, I am going through Waffle and Sample unattached clubs to sit down and have a nice chat and learn about the clubs in these absolutely fantastic state leagues. And joining me today, all the way from nice, warm Perth, Western Australia, I have Zach Ferguson. Zach, thank you for joining me today, sir.
No worries, Donny. I hope you're well, mate.
I am not doing too bad. It is great to sit down and have another chat. Always look forward to it. So, before we get into the footy talk and find out about you as a fan and what club that you support, I like finding out a little bit about the person that I'm chatting with. So, could you tell me just a little bit about yourself outside of the game of football?
No worries. I'm 19. I graduated school 2 years ago. I'm currently working in an engineering lab. Planning to go to university next year. I love horse racing. I love all sports, really. American sports, footy, obviously. Yeah, I enjoy sports, hanging out with my friends, family. But yeah, just, I don't know, just a pretty normal guy, I suppose.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Just a normal everyday bloke, not a bad thing on that one. So I got to ask this again. WA footy mad. What is your favorite thing about the sport of footy?
I don't know. My dad's a massive fan of the Freo Dockers and the AFL, so I was born into it basically. Been a member since I was born. I think about footy to me is like you compare it to other sports. I just love how like tactical it is. It's nothing like it in the world. Like it's going to a game live. I love going to a game, watching all like how the team's set up, the tactics around it, different positions. I don't know. I just love footy.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I got into it a little bit later, but 100% agree with you. This sport is such a difference to many of the sports you see. So
Yeah,
absolutely love it. So
very unique,
all right,
100%.
you're still young in your life, so this may not be as difficult as it is for some of my guests. What is your earliest footy
Oh, I can remember going to Subiaco Oval. Obviously, the used to be the stadium in Perth before we built up to the stadium, watching the Dockers play. I remember going to a game when we a derby. I think it was about 2012. We beat the Eagles by about 80 points. I remember going to the school the next day and just shutting around like I was the king of the school because most of the people I went to school with supported the Eagles.
memory?
And I copped a lot of shit in my time for being a Dockers fan, but I can remember how proud I was of my team.
There's nothing wrong with that. Be pride and be prideful of the club that you support. So, all right. So we're gonna go. We talked a little bit AFL. Now let's go to it. What is the Waffle Club that you support, and how did you come to support them?
I'm a big South Fremantle Bulldogs supporter. Basically, my grandma and my dad, they've been going to games since probably the 1980s. So I was just raised into being a Bulldogs fan. Me and my old man have been going to games probably for about 5 years now. But I remember going to games at about the early 2010s. But I wouldn't have missed many games in the last 2, 3 years of the Waffle. To be honest, I just love it. South Fremantle. I was a Taylor Roy supporter. I obviously follow Peel Thunder a bit because of the Dockers Alliance, but I'm a South Fremantle man through and through.
There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely love it as a Dougie supporter. I got to ask this. I love the rivalry between many of the clubs in AFL and in Sandful and Waffle. So, is there anybody in the family? Because you kind of said that you had some family members that follow South. Is there anybody that was a black sheep that decided to follow a different club?
Yeah, my granddad supports East Fremantle, so there's a bit of a rivalry there. But the rest of my family is all South Fremantle supporters. It's just my granddad; he's a East Fremantle fan. So yeah, a few arguments not because of it. He's obviously quite happy at the end of last season. I won the premiership. I'm still hearing about it to this day. But yeah, most people are South Fremantle in my family, just except my granddad, who he's East Fremantle.
I can only imagine the banter on that one. Absolutely fantastic. So,
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
kind of said,
a lot of it. Yeah,
you're still young into it, and I know for many people that some of these clubs have a lot of history. So, can you just tell me just a little bit of the
yeah.
history that you know of about of South Fremantle?
Well, South Fremantle is one of the oldest clubs in the Waffle. Um, you're testing me here. I know they've played at Fremantle Oval for a very, very long time. Like a few clubs have moved grounds over the years, but I know South Fremantle have been at the Fremantle Oval for a very long time. They've got a pretty proud history. I can't quote how many premierships they've won exactly, but I know they've won quite a few.
Mhm.
History in recent times, I think we last year was the first year we missed the finals for geez, a very, very long time. Um, But there's a proud history of South Fremantle. They've produced a lot of AFL products, won lots of premierships. Um, been at the same home ground for a long time. I think we're one of the most traditional waffle clubs and one of the most large supported ones, just because of how strong our history is, and it's the proud club to support, mate.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to ask this question. I pretty much know the answer because I think we already kind of got the answer a little bit earlier with the family dilemma. Who is their biggest rival and why?
East Fremantle for sure, mate. The two Fremantle clubs, Yeah, geez, well, the rivalry recently. I think South Fremantle until the you just won 13 straight derbies. So I wouldn't record a rivalry, just a bit of a dominance. Turned up to the derby,
Mhm.
knowing what the result was going to be, but we did finally lose one, so it's a bit more of a rivalry now. East Fremantle are a better club, but in recent time, I think one of our biggest rivals has also been Subiaco, because South Fremantle and Subiaco are the two teams over the last, I guess you could say, 5 to 10 years who had been dominant, I guess. I mean, Subiaco more dominant, obviously, but I mean, South
Mhm.
Fremantle were the team who ended their, I think, 30-game unbeaten run, for example. So, over history, it's definitely East Fremantle, but more recent times, I've loved watching us play Subiaco and beating Subiaco.
Always nice to beat the Lions for sure on that one. So
Yeah,
I, I I'm
100%.
I love this because mementos and memorabilia is something that I know a lot of fans keep. Can you remember the
Yeah.
first South Fremantle item that you were ever given or bought?
Yeah, it was like one of those long sleeve, like, not infant, but toddler jerseys. I still got it at home, just to know the red and white V. I've still got it, just like a long sleeve one. I probably gotten was maybe two or three. But yeah, I've still got it at home. Yeah, it's a good piece of merchandise. That.
Definitely. And something that you have a lot of memories with, absolutely for sure. So
Oh yeah, hundred
I
percent. Yeah,
I tell a lot of people this is that I love being a fan because I think for each person it's different. They describe how they
oh yeah,
handle it, how they do something. I mean, being an Aussie Roll supporter over here, and I'm an unabashed Sydney Swan supporter, and I'm crazy. I will get up at 2:45 when their games are on for the men and even the women as well. So I love hearing it from different people. Can you describe to me your fandom of the South Fremantle Football Club?
well, I'm going to say this. It's probably, I think it's true, but I think South Mel's got the biggest active support group in the Waffle. There's about 10 of us who go down most weeks with our flags, sit behind the goals, rotate from end to end, cheering, with the chants and the flags. So I didn't used to do that. I used to just go to the games with my dad or my grandma. I used to sit in the stands, and then I watched the people behind the goals. I would have been about 14 at the time. I went, geez, I want to be part of that. So I wandered down there, introduced myself. And what's this, 5 years later? Every week we usually catch up before the game, have a beer. If the Dockers are playing, we watch the footy. And then we go down, sit behind the goals, and just, wave our flags and cheer on South Fremantle.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely love it. So passionate fans. I wish I had that opportunity. Unfortunately, it's not easy for me to get to Australia as first for you guys getting to a waffle game. So, all right, I want to hear this. What was the first ever
Yeah.
South Fremantle game that you attended live?
I don't remember exactly off the top of my head because I was that young, but I can remember going to one in about, one I can remember 2000, I think it was about 2015. I remember it was at Fremantle Oval about the middle of June, and it was seriously just absolutely bucketing down with rain. And I think it was a derby, and I think we won by, I think close to 100 points. I remember thinking, oh, South Fremantle, geez, these guys, this must be impossible to, like, they never lose, which turned out to be wrong. I saw us lose four preliminary finals in a row, etc. But I remember going to a derby in about 2015, and it was just chucking it down with rain. Yeah, I just got hooked on the waffle, and I've never stopped loving it since.
And nothing wrong with that. It's a great competition. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed watching it this year and cannot wait for the season to come this year. So I gotta ask this. I know this isn't easy for some people because it's easy to get attached to your players. Can you tell me your favorite player of the past and your favorite player currently donning the South Fremantle Guernsey?
Well, my current player of the past, actually returning this year after taking a year off, Hayden Sloyf, absolute champion of South Fremantle. I think he's almost a record game holder. I think he's won a Sandover medal, obviously the best and fairest in the waffle. He's won, I think, 4 or 5 South Fremantle best and fairest, the WJ Hughes medal. And look, Hayden Sloyf, mate, he's just an absolute heart and soul player of the South Fremantle Football Club. When I first turned up to games, he used to run around the midfield, and he still did until 2021. 2022, he retired this year, took it off, but he's come back next year, which was a surprise. Can't wait for it. But yeah, Hayden Schleif, absolutely love him as a player. He's a tough, gritty midfielder. I don't know how he didn't get a proper crack at AFL level, but I guess that's South Fremantle. They got the most out of him. He's a great player.
Nothing wrong with that. So already, so it's always good when you have the player of the past and the present that's both the same. That's absolutely that's fantastic. All right.
If you want another one, actually, I've got a good one for you.
Okay.
Matty Parker. I can remember in 2018, me and my grandma went to a game and we watched this guy. I think he took about three speckies in a game. We're like, geez, this guy's good. Kept
Hmm.
watching him play. I think he end of 2019, he got drafted to St Kilda,
Hmm.
and no Richmond. He got drafted to Richmond first. What was it? Richmond? He got drafted to Richmond to St Kilda. And I was like, gee, I remember watching this guy about 18 months ago, thinking he could play footy. He was unheard of. I think he just came out of the Colts program and started playing league games. Ended up getting drafted. Played a few games, got delisted, came back to South Fremantle, then got drafted again in the mid-season draft. I think then it was Richmond. Yeah, it was St Kilda, then Richmond. But Matty Parker, I used to love. He was one of my favourite players for a long time. I think he's playing with South Fremantle again next year. But yeah, Hayden Sleep and Matty Parker, easily my two favourite players.
Yeah, I remember Matty Parker playing the AFL. Hey, great player. Sad that
Yeah,
his
yeah,
AFL career was a little bit shorter than I think he probably wanted, but an incredible player for sure. So I love this next
yeah,
question just because I love
yeah.
seeing the smile and the twinkle in their eye as they recall this most memorable moment so far as a South Fremantle
Oh,
supporter.
this is an easy answer. The 2020 grand final. Just the grand final was hosted at Fremantle Oval instead of Optus Stadium that year. So it was South Mel's 120th year, I think, or maybe 100. It was some milestone, 120. I should know. I can't remember. So the grand final was at Freo Oval. We finally. It was a shortened season because of COVID, so it was a bit of a challenging season. We made the grand final against Claremont. It was one of the best games of football I've ever seen. I think the score line was about 50-46. It was a tough game. Jimmy Miller took a mark about 3 minutes to go. They scored about eight. He kicked a goal from the pocket, a drop punt from like an angle you usually banana it. Like he'd kicked the goal, and I can remember I couldn't watch the last 3 minutes, mate. I was that nervous. The sign went. I sprinted it back up the stairs, give my dad one of the biggest hugs I've ever given someone in my life. And then it was just, oh mate, I'll never forget that moment with my dad. That was one of the best moments I've ever had in my life, to be honest. Just the pure joy and relief. And then we partied into the night at the South Meadow Club rooms. That was my favourite memory of a South Meadow. Oh, I wish I could go back to that moment, mate. It was that good, honestly.
Those are memories you will always have. Absolutely love it. Like I said, the twinkle in the eye, the smile on your face as you talk about it, it's one of my favorite things to see as I watch this. So alrighty, we go from the joy of that, unfortunately, to I'm going to bring it down a little bit, and I hate going negative, but unfortunately, South Fremantle last year did not exactly have the season that many I think expected a little bit. It didn't help, unfortunately,
Yeah,
when they started the season a little bit in the hole. We won't go into
yeah,
all of that
yeah,
drama. I don't want to discuss that because that's not what I'm here for. But your thoughts on last year's South Fremantle team? Unfortunately,
mate.
a 6-12 record, falling short, not making the five, finishing eighth on the ladder. I mean, your thoughts on last year?
Well, look, obviously, as you mentioned from the start of the season, we're going to be we're under it. We're going to have to make a big effort to make the finals. So obviously, didn't make the finals. But what I loved about the season was, mate, we debuted I think around 18 players. It's like a ridiculous number. We debuted so many players, which was the good thing to do. Like you're not in a position to win the competition. So find out if the players you've got waiting in the wings and your Colts and your reserves teams are any good. And I think we found some really good players last season. Aaron Drag, he's a midfielder we debuted. I think he was our top disposal getter in his first three games in the Waffle League. Like he's a serious player. Like I thought he might have gotten drafted to the AFL, but I think he could if he starts the season how he finished last season. I think he could go on the mid-season draft, to be honest. But there's a few other players I can't think of off the top of my head we debuted last season towards the back end when we realised the season was basically over. So look, the record suggests it was a bad season, but I think it could have been worse. We blooded a lot of youth, you know, found a few players for the future. So look, as a fan, it wasn't the greatest, but I think long term it was a good season.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a building block years. You never know with the development you get with blooding young players. It could really help you out over the next couple of seasons. So it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
It
100%.
stinks to start a couple of games negative because it basically it takes you a little bit to just get to even again, and they just
Yeah,
never really
yeah,
could recover. A couple of losses during the season that I think shocked a few people, including that East Fremantle game where they broke the
yeah,
record. It kind of shocked a few people. So I'm with you on that
yeah,
one. As much as it stinks when you look at your ladder position, I think there's a lot of good things that came out of it in the long
yeah,
run for maybe the
100%.
future. So it'll be fun to watch on that one. So We're in the off season. We're in the off season. Do you keep an eye on any of the off season moves? Have you seen anything that maybe
Yeah,
some signings that they've
we,
had that you think might be
we've
nice
signed it.
impact
We've signed a
players
few
next year?
players. Yeah, we signed a few players. I know we signed Jason Carter from Claremont. He was on the Dockers list for a while. I think we also signed, off the top of my head, a few. I think a few Eastern States boys, and also a couple of guys from other waffle clubs who probably weren't getting opportunities they wanted. So we've recruited strongly. I think we would have recruited at least 7 or 8 players, which is good. New blood in the door. So got a bit of optimism for the next season. New players, younger players. I reckon it'll be hard not to improve next year, but I think we've
Mhm.
definitely recruited some good players. I think with an extra preseason under some of the young fellas' belts, we should go up the ladder. I hope, touch wood.
Should be a very interesting next season because I think you've got a couple of teams in the waffle I think are going to be quite good. It's gonna be fun competition to watch on that one. So when I wrote
Yeah,
this question originally, and I really should change it, but I'm going to keep it as is because for some fans there are expectations. There are what I expect this season to be. For me, I don't like expectations because it there's expectations. Your thoughts
yeah.
on next season? Is this a team that crawls up the ladder, maybe makes finals, or is it going to be another developmental season next year?
No, I think. Look, it's hard for me as a Sacramento fan over the last 5 years to think we'll be bad, but I honestly think we're a chance to finish maybe fourth to fifth. No, I'll say between fourth and sixth next season. I guess that if we made the finals, I wouldn't expect us to win the whole competition, but I think we will definitely improve next year.
Mm-hmm.
If we go backwards next year, I think it's a serious problem.
Yep. Then questions get asked 100% with you. So, all right, I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with you. I know that especially over here in the States, everybody wants to be the general manager or the list manager
Yeah,
over in Australia. So I love these questions because they're a little bit of fun. I am going to install you as the South Fremantle list manager for one day. You have one contract where you can steal a player from any of the other Waffle clubs. Only Waffle players,
yeah,
no, not AFL, only
yeah.
Waffle. Who's the one player you bring over to South Fremantle to maybe make finals next year?
I'm gonna steal from West Perth, Tyler Keitel, the key forward.
Awesome, awesome.
100%. I think Jimmy Miller, the guy I mentioned about the grand final goal, he's our key forward last year. I think he's moved back over to Victoria, so we've lost him, which is a big loss. So I'd definitely
Mhm.
still probably the best key forward in the waffle, Tyler Keitel from West Perth.
Awesome. That'd be a nice addition on that one. So many people that listen to my podcast know I am a huge supporter of the women's game. So I have to ask you, do you keep track of the South Fremantle women's team? And if so, your thoughts on last year, a team that finished
Yeah.
second in the waffle, just had a few issues in the finals, but a really solid season last year, finishing second on the ladder.
Look, I can't, to be honest, mate. Like all I really do is I study and hear about the scores. I haven't watched many games, to be honest. I'm not a big follower of it, but I do know obviously we finished second. South Fremantle actually has a radio program on
Hmm.
in Perth, which is the only waffle club to have one. So they cover that. They cover the men's and women's. So that's the most I've heard about it. What they relay on the radio show about it. But yeah, I know they finished second, which was a big improvement, I believe, in years past. So hopefully they recruit well, also like the men's team, and can go the next step next year, finish top of the ladder and win the premiership. Hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Claremont's a strong team. I think they're going to lose a
Yeah,
few in
yeah,
the upcoming draft, just from
yeah. I think
talent
that's
wise.
tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Is
tomorrow.
that
Yeah,
draft
tomorrow
tomorrow?
night,
Yeah.
7 p.m. Melbourne time. It's 2 a.m. my time. So I'm still in
Oh,
that
yeah,
long running debate of do I get up to watch the draft or do I just catch the results later? It'll be
yeah,
fun for that one. So all right, we jump to it. We kind of talked AFL a little bit. As you said, you're a Fremantle Dockers supporter, and I'm not going to go into too much on that one, but your thoughts on Fremantle because I mean, again, a team that I think kind of underperformed last year.
Well, look, I've gone to war with a few people trying to defend the Dockers, but I think, you look at last year's average list age. The Dockers, I think, were second or third last. Like, we lost a lot of experience last
Hmm.
year. And similar to South Fremantle, we've been blooding players who are young. You'd find out they're players of the future. Like, I can think off my head, Corey Wagner, Kyle Warner. Geez, it's testing me here. The Dockers, I've not been thinking about the AFL late recently, but my point is the Dockers, similar to South, they had similar seasons.
Hmm.
They lost experience. They lost experience. They blooded younger players. I think the Dockers next year, if they don't improve, then gee whiz, I'd hate to be Justin Long when you put it that way. I think the Dockers, you know, It's hard, because I'm used to this being disappointed year in year out, which I hate to say, but the Dockers,
Mhm.
are known to underperform. But I think they need maybe an extra 2 or 3 years to, we've got a young team. All our good players are young, which is a good position to be in. But you can't be. I expect improvement next year, but I think the top eight, top four is probably 2025, 2026 for the Dockers.
Mhm. It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how Nat Five comes back this year because I know that
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not exactly been his best. If he can get back to his best, I think Fremantle has a good shot of rocketing up and maybe even contending for finals this year. It'll be fun. I mean, I think Luke Jackson and Sean Darcy, I think, are slowly going to start getting used to working with each other, which I think
Yeah.
Fremantle's biggest issue last year was I think they downplayed or underestimated the impact of Griffin Logue and of, oh my gosh, I'm totally forgetting. He joined the Blues.
Rory Lobb,
No, not
Blake
Lob.
Acres,
Blake Acres. That
Blake
was it.
Acres.
Like
Yeah,
he did a lot of good things for Fremantle,
yeah.
and I think his loss on the wing really kind of threw Fremantle a little bit. So I am
No, I
100% with.
tell you, yeah, we spent most of the year developing Liam Henry as a wingman. He was horrific as a small
Mm,
forward. We give
hmm.
Liam Henry a chance, and we know what happens next. So it's a bit disappointing,
Unfortunately,
but
you
what can you
just
do?
can't keep wingers right now.
Yeah, no. Well, we
Frustrating.
recruited Jeremy Sharp from Gold Coast, who wasn't getting many games at the Gold Coast, which I think it's because he tried to leave the end of last season. They didn't let
Hmm.
him, so he probably fell out of favour there. So
Yeah.
hopefully he's back home. Hopefully he can play on the wing. There's not much competition on the
He's
wing spot at
solid.
Fremantle.
If he's anything like he was there for a while at Gold Coast, I think you've got a nice you got a nice player
Yeah.
there. So it'll be
We got
fun
him.
to
We
watch that one.
paid nothing for him as well, so it's a
Exactly.
risk-free hit, really.
All right, so
Yeah,
we'll jump. We'll stay on the AFL. Stay on the AFL a little bit. And I know this was the talk of the entire AFL last year, and it was gather round. And when they originally announced it, I was worried that it was going to be a magic round knockoff from the NRL, and it wasn't going to be as good. But boy, was I wrong! It was an incredible round
yeah.
of footy. I thought Adelaide and South Australia did wonderfully well. Your thoughts on gather round? Is this something we should continue? And then I'll throw it in here. Are you somebody at Perth? Would you really, really want Gather Round to maybe go west one year?
I'm all for Gavin Ryan if it's in Perth, mate. Put it that way. It's too hard to be able to book flights and accommodation if it's somewhere else. I'd love to go, but you have to book like a year in advance. It's ridiculous to be able to get there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like the concept. And obviously, the NRL started it. There's not many things the NRL does better than the AFL, but I think Magic Round initiating that was definitely a good move by them. I think Gavin Round, I think it was good. I know a few people who went, they absolutely loved their time there, but it's very hard to get accommodation mainly. And the
Hmm.
flights, the airlines pump up the prices, especially for it. So yeah, not a cheap adventure, but I'd love to go one day.
Yeah, so I honestly I think once you get past once you get past this contract to South Australia, I would love to see it go to WA. I think it would be great to see it go WA, Queensland, and New South Wales and Sydney. I think should be next. Do not send it to Victoria. Do not do it because most
Nah,
rounds in the AFL are
it's
gather round
basically
anyways.
Magic Round there everywhere. Yeah, it's basically
Exactly.
Magic Round there every weekend anyway.
Pretty much, pretty much. All right, and we'll go to another thing that the AFL decided to kind of go off. Speaking of NRL, is that with the NRL going to Vegas, with four teams going to Vegas, the
Yep.
AFL had the brilliant idea of this round zero. And even as a Swan supporter, I'm still a little iffy on this. So, as a Fremantle supporter, your thoughts of this round zero prospect of the four northern states getting a game to start the year before the season actually starts.
Look, it's not often you see the AFL panic and make an impulsive move because of the NRL, but I think that's what
Hmm.
they've done. And
I
I don't
agree.
think they need to do it either. Look, there's nothing wrong with the round one fixtures. There's nothing wrong with the AFL fixtures in general. I'm a believer if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Hmm.
I don't like the idea of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Like I said, I'm a northern state supporting. I love that they're trying to find a way, but I think what they wanted to do and what they're executing is not the same because the NRL is still there. There are still NRL games that
Yeah.
round, that weekend. So they're not stealing the spotlight from the
Oh,
NRL. So I think, I agree with you. I think they saw an opportunity, they went for it, but they didn't really think it that 100% way through. So I'm 100% with you on that one. So, all right, as we kind of get towards the end of the podcast, I have a couple of fun questions to ask because I've never been to Australia. It is my goal. I want to get there. And I'm going to try to get to as many states as I can to see footy in its native land. So I got to ask this when I go to the footy, What is your go-to food when you go to the footy?
A pint of beer and a meat pie, mate.
That tends to be a
Simple
very
as that.
popular one.
Yeah, simple as that.
Hot,
Sometimes
ch-
I'm extra hungry. I'll have a serve of chips as well, but a
yep,
pint and beer, mate.
yep.
Simple as
Hot,
that.
hot chips is starting to make a nice run for it, but I get that was for the longest time it was a meat pie, and then the beer has always been thrown in as well. And then my
Yeah,
other
oh, of
favorite,
course.
my other question is when I go to a game, I want to get the best possible seat. I want to see the best possible atmosphere. Where is your go-to seat when you go to the footy?
Well, at the waffle, I like to be as close as I can to the action because you can hear the players and the umpires clearly because there's not obviously not a massive crowd. So I love the close-up experience of that. In the AFL, at Optus Stadium, if you're on the third tier on the wing,
Mhm.
or even in just on the wing on the third tier at Optus Stadium, perfect view, mate. Perfect view.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then my last question, I know this isn't easy, but it's always one of my favorites. I'm starting a library of these games. Favorite game of footy you have ever seen, live on the telly, at the ground, doesn't matter. Favorite game of footy you have ever seen.
Okay, I'll give you one for the waffle. 2020 Grand Final,
Hmm.
AFL, 2013 qualifying final, Geelong versus Fremantle.
When you went down to GMHBA and knocked off the Cats. Not a bad,
And one of the
not a,
greatest
not a
goal,
bad
one of the
pair.
greatest goals you ever see. One of the greatest goals you'll ever see that game.
Not a bad pair there at all. Well, Zach, this has been a fantastic conversation. I thoroughly enjoy it. I truly, truly appreciate you hopping on the podcast and telling me a little
Anytime.
bit about your love of South Fremantle.
Anytime. It's a pleasure, mate. It's glad to see someone overseas this passionate about football. I like to see it. Keep doing what you're doing, mate. I love your content. And we'll continue to watch it.
Well, thank you. I genuinely appreciate it, and I thoroughly loved it. I'm just having so much fun. Like I said, I don't give the waffle as much love as I probably could. Unfortunately, I can't do it once every week because then I'd be doing
Yeah.
5 podcasts covering the VFL, the sample, the waffle, and the AFL. But I try to do it once a month and I try to get as good a coverage as I possibly can. And it's been thoroughly so much fun, and I cannot wait for next season. So thank you again. This has been another awesome off-season supporter series chat. Keep an eye out, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're getting closer to the holidays. I think I've got at least one more going to come out before the Chrissy holidays. And everybody have a wonderful holiday season with family and friends. We will be back strong after January 1st with the rest of with the off-season supporter series, getting closer and closer to the AFL men's and the Sandful women's starting to start back the coverage of another season of AFL footy. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back again with another episode of Donnie's Disposals very, very soon.